Hey, it's Danny from projectmanaverse.com, and in this video I'm going to share with you 9 warning signs that your project meetings are ineffective. So let's get started. So what do I mean by an ineffective meeting? I mean when you have a meeting with your project team or your project stakeholders and you don't get the maximum value out of that meeting, or even worse, you don't get any value out of that meeting. And meetings are really important for projects. They're an excellent tool to achieve an outcome that requires several people. Often we'll be in situations and projects where we're not getting the result we want, we're not getting the outcome we want, and a quick meeting is an excellent way to achieve that outcome often. So we want to make sure our meetings are effective so we can not waste our time and improve the chances of a successful project. That's always what it comes down to. We want to de-risk the project and make it as smooth and successful as possible. So we want effective meetings to do that. So I'm going to go through the 9 warning signs that perhaps your project meetings are not effective. And sometimes when you're in the meeting, you don't notice these things. So it can often require an outside perspective. But if you don't have that outside perspective and no one giving you feedback on your meetings, then you just need to be a bit conscious. So I'll go through this list and hopefully you can think about your own meetings. And if you are doing any number of these things, think about maybe trying to tighten up your meetings and make them more effective. Okay, so number 1 is that you discuss the same things in different meetings, but you don't make a decision. So you're discussing things, but you're not making a decision. That's number 1. Now, that is a clear sign that your meetings are ineffective. You want to make sure that you are closing that decision down. And if you're not able to do that, you need to take a step back and think, right, why? Is it just because you haven't clearly articulated that as the outcome you're looking for? Have you not got the right people on the call? Whatever it is, you need to do something about it and close that down as quickly as possible. But if you find that's a common theme with your meetings, you just can't get your stakeholders to make a decision, that's a warning sign that your meeting is ineffective. Number 2 is that the meetings go off topic a lot. And as a project manager, it's your duty, your responsibility to make sure projects stay on topic. Sometimes they can veer off a little bit if you think the conversation is still valuable and you don't want to kill it, but you don't want to let that be the habit and the commonplace and the standard way of working. You want to just keep things on track so you can achieve the meeting outcomes as quickly as possible. And sometimes you have to be a bit abrupt to do that. You have to talk over people to say, sorry guys, I think we're going off topic a bit here. Can we just steer back to the original objective of the meeting? But that's just part and parcel of the role. So don't worry about offending people. You just have to do that sometimes. And people are pretty thick-skinned usually. And they expect you as a project manager to keep things on track. So they won't be offended. Number 3 is you continue to talk on the meeting, or you continue to have the meeting after the objective has already been achieved. Now, that's a clear sign that you're just wasting time. So you'll have your meeting, you'll get the outcome pretty much in 10 minutes, all done, but then you just keep talking and the meeting goes on and on. You don't need to do that. Once you've achieved the outcome of the meeting, close down the meeting and move on, give everyone some time back, and you can get on with other things as a project manager. Number 4 is that you take up all the meeting time. And it's similar to the previous point, but there is a slight difference. But if you find that all your meetings are always taking the maximum time, that is a sign that your meetings are ineffective, because surely that can't be a coincidence that all the meetings you have take exactly the amount of time that you put in there, which is the half an hour or the 15 minutes or the hour. Usually in the project world, meetings tend to be half an hour. Sometimes they're an hour for a bit longer. More than that, it's more of a workshop. But if your meetings are always going on for the half an hour, then surely that can't be a coincidence that every meeting, every outcome you try and achieve takes exactly half an hour. So you should be trying to end your meetings before the allocated window that you have provided for that session. Okay, number 5 is people are not clear on what you are trying to achieve for the meeting, and that includes you as a project manager as well. And you can feel that in the air sometimes in meetings. People are things can feel a bit vague. People don't feel confident in what is being said. You'll get a sense of it, but of course, you yourself as a project manager, if you feel that you're having a meeting, and it's your meeting especially, and you don't quite know what you're trying to get out of it, that is a clear warning sign that your meetings are ineffective. You should always have a clear outcome for the meeting, and that should be in the meeting invite in advance so people know what you're trying to get out of the meeting. Okay, number 6. Some people are silent through the whole call. If you have passengers, we call them, people that join the call, they turn their camera off, they might not as well even be there because they don't say a word, you can't see them. You're not making the most out of the resources on that call. So either they didn't need to be there in the first place, or you're just not getting the best out of them. You're not getting the best out of your team and your resources. So if people are quiet, you need to try and stimulate the conversation. Just ask them questions, say, Jack, what do you think about this? And bring them into the conversation so they're not just being quiet, because they might have something really valuable to add, but they're just not saying it. They might be shy about it, or for whatever reason, they're a bit hesitant to share what they believe, or they're just really busy and they're multitasking and they're not listening to the conversation. So they could have had something really important to say, but they didn't say it because they're busy doing something else. And it could have been something really important. They could have flagged a risk or an issue that would have happened if you carried on with let me take a step back. They could have flagged a risk or an issue that was quite important that you're not going to be aware of because they weren't listening and they didn't have a chance to input. So make sure that if you invite people to a call, they are at least saying something. Try and get people to have their cameras on, because then they can't hide and you can see if they're multitasking, and it just brings an extra level of engagement to the call if everyone has their cameras on. Okay, the next one is number 7. Establish things that have been discovered. You spend time re-establishing things that have been discussed before. So you don't want to revisit old ground and go over things that have been done before, because sometimes you can spend half an hour to conclude something, all agree on something. It might not even be a decision, but you just have to get on the same page. That can take time. So if you do that and then 2 weeks later you're having that same conversation again, you're trying to get people back on the same page, that is a sign that you either weren't effective in doing it the first time round, or you didn't do the follow-up closely enough to make sure that stayed in people's heads. You didn't send out the meeting minutes, you didn't discuss it in the direct meeting after that one. So you need to make sure that these levels or areas of establishment are to stay established. You don't have to go back and re-establish them. If you find yourself doing that a lot in your meetings, then that's a sign that your meetings are ineffective. Okay, next one is you don't have the right materials for the meeting. So if you go into a meeting and you find out that you can't achieve the outcome of the meeting because you don't have the right materials, then that's a sign that your meetings are ineffective, because you haven't planned it properly. You haven't thought about what you're going to need to make that meeting effective. And on the same note, if you don't have the right people in the meeting, that's the same kind of issue, because you need to have the right knowledge on the call. You need to have the right SMEs or subject matter experts to be able to get the right outcome from the call. If you bring everyone onto the call and you find out that you're missing some key people, then you've just wasted everyone's time. So if you do find that, it's best to nip it in the bud at the start of the call and say, right, sorry guys, I think we just don't have the right people on this call to achieve the outcomes we want, so I'll reschedule. And don't just go on for the sake of it and try and drag on the meeting just because you're embarrassed to stop it, because you won't get the outcomes you want. It's better to just bite the bullet, lose that 5 minutes, and then get the right people on for the next time. Okay, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. If you want to see more videos like this one, hit the subscribe button. And until tomorrow, please take care.